Good evening and welcome to our Sleep to Lore series. Tonight we will be journeying into a world that exists just alongside our own, a world hidden in the shadows and margins of countless familiar stories. We are going to explore the vast and intricate cosmology that underpins much of Stephen King's fictional universe, a grand design that is most clearly seen in his epic series, The Dark Tower. This is not a story of monsters under the bed, but of the very structure of reality, of the forces that hold all worlds together and the ancient struggle to tear them apart. If you find value in these long journeys into lore and wish to help this channel continue, please consider subscribing or leaving a comment. It helps more than you know. Before we begin, I have a simple question for you. What is your favorite Stephen King book or story, even if it is not part of the Dark Tower series? There is no right or wrong answer, and it is always fascinating to see which tales have resonated the most with people. Let us know your answer in the comments below. Now find a comfortable position. Allow your body to relax, to feel heavy and at ease. Let the world outside fade away. There is nothing else you need to do. Nowhere else you need to be. Just listen to the story as it unfolds. Our journey begins, as so many do, in a vast and empty place, following the footsteps of a lone, determined man. Part 1. The Song of Ka. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. This is the key, the opening line that serves as a mantra, a starting point for a tale that spirals out into infinity. But before we can understand the destination, we must first understand the desert itself. Picture it not as a simple expanse of sand and rock, but as the thinning fabric of a reality that is coming apart at the seams. The sun is wrong. It is too large, too hot, and sometimes it rises in the south and sets in the north. The stars at night are not the familiar constellations of our own world, but strange and cold patterns that seem to watch with a quiet intelligence. Time itself is unreliable here. A day can feel like a week, and an hour can pass in the blink of an eye. This is mid-world, the nexus point, the world that lies closest to the heart of all things. And it is dying. The gunslinger, Roland Deschain, feels this decay in his very bones. He feels it in the bitter taste of the water he draws from a nearly dry well. He sees it in the warped and twisted shapes of the devil grass that chokes the landscape. He hears it in the profound silence, a silence that speaks of absence, of a world that has forgotten the song it used to sing. This journey, this pursuit of a single man, is far more than an act of revenge or justice. It is a pilgrimage. Roland is walking a path that was laid out for him long before he was ever born. He is being pulled forward by a force he only dimly understands, a force that the people of this world and many others call Ka. To begin to understand Ka, you must first let go of simple definitions like fate or destiny. Those words are too small, too human. They imply a plan written in a book, a script that must be followed. Ka is not a script. Ka is the river. Imagine a vast continental river, beginning as a tiny spring high in some ancient, unknowable mountain range. That spring is the start of a life, or an event. As it trickles down the mountain, it is joined by other streams, other lives, other choices. It grows, becoming a creek, then a stream, then a roaring river, carving its path through the landscape of time and space. A person walking along the bank of this river has choices. They can choose to cup their hands and drink. They can choose to bathe in the cool water. They can even choose to try and swim against the current. They can struggle, they can fight, they can exhaust themselves, resisting the flow. But they cannot stop the river from reaching the sea. The sea is the river's destination. It is the purpose for which the water flows. That is Ka. It is the great current of purpose that flows through all of existence. It is not a conscious entity that makes decisions. It is a fundamental law of the universe, like gravity. It is the tendency of all things to move towards a necessary conclusion. The gunslinger is a man caught in the most powerful current of this river. His entire life has been shaped by its flow. The loss of his home, the city of Gilead, the betrayal of his friends, the death of his first love. All of these events were eddies and rapids in the river of his car, pulling him away from the safe shoreline and pushing him into the deep, fast-moving center of the current. He does not always know why he does what he does. He follows the man in black because he must. His feet move, his hands check his guns, his eyes scan the horizon. He is an instrument of a will, far larger than his own. He is a tool of purpose. He is serving Ka, whether he desires to or not. This is why Ka is often called a wheel. Imagine a water wheel, immense and ancient, standing in the great river of time. The river pushes the wheel, causing it to turn, and as it turns, it lifts the water of purpose, powering the machinery of the cosmos. Our lives are like droplets of water caught on the paddles of that wheel. We rise, we fall, we are carried along for the ride, and the wheel turns and turns and turns. The same patterns emerge again and again, the same struggles, the same loves, the same betrayals. Not in exactly the same way, but the shape of the story remains. History does not repeat, as the saying goes, but it often rhymes. In the worlds of the Dark Tower, this is a literal truth. The Wheel of Ka ensures that the great stories, the important conflicts, are played out over and over until the lesson is learned, until the purpose is finally fulfilled. Roland has been on this wheel for a very long time. Longer than he knows. He's a figure of legend and myth precisely because his story is one of the fundamental patterns carved into the wheel itself. The story of the seeker, the lonely warrior on a quest for the center of all things. The wheel turns and the gunslinger follows the man in black. The wheel turns again and the story begins anew. But Ka is not cruel, not intentionally. It is simply relentless. It is the force that drives a seed to sprout from the soil and reach for the sun. It is the instinct that guides a migrating bird across a featureless ocean. It is the undeniable pull of a great story towards its inevitable end. It has no morality. It is not good or evil. It simply is. When characters in this world say, Ka is a wheel, it is an expression of acceptance. It is a recognition that they are part of something vast and incomprehensible, a cosmic drama that has been unfolding since the dawn of time. They are accepting their role in the play, even if they do not know how it will end. This force, this current, this wind of destiny is not always a grand, sweeping power that moves armies and topples kingdoms. It also works in the small, quiet moments between people. It works in the subtle connections that bind souls together across the seemingly random chaos of life. This is where we encounter the concept of the quartet. The old tongue of Midworld defines a quartet as a group of people brought together by Ka to achieve a single great purpose. It is one from many. Think of it as a family you do not choose, a team assembled by the universe itself. The members of a quartet may come from different worlds, different times, different walks of life. They may have nothing in common on the surface. They might even dislike each other at first, but Ka has drawn them together for a reason. Their skills, their strengths, their very weaknesses are all necessary pieces of a larger puzzle. They are like keys, each cut to fit a different lock on the same door. Alone, they are just individuals. Together they are a force of destiny, a living, breathing extension of the will of Ka. The formation of a quartet is a strange and often bewildering experience for those involved. It begins with a sense of recognition, a feeling of déjà vu when meeting a stranger. It is a whisper in the back of the mind that says, I know you. We have done this before. They might share dreams, seeing through each other's eyes as they sleep. They might find that they can finish each other's sentences or anticipate each other's actions in a fight, moving with a grace and synchronicity that should be impossible for people who have only just met. This is the bond of Quartet, and it is as real and as strong as any family tie. Roland's great quest for the Dark Tower could never be completed alone. He is a powerful and determined man, but he is also broken, a lonely figure consumed by his singular obsession. Ka knows this. The river of his destiny must be joined by other streams if it is ever to have the strength to reach the sea. And so, Ka provides. The first to be drawn into the gunslinger's world is a young boy named Jake, from a world that looks very much like our own, from a city called New York. His introduction to Roland's path is brutal and tragic. He dies in his own world, pushed into traffic by a sinister figure, and awakens in the desolate emptiness of Midworld. His meeting with the gunslinger is no accident. It is a calculated move by the universe. Jake represents the innocence and the heart that Roland has lost. He is the son the gunslinger never had, a reminder of the life and the love that he sacrificed for his quest. Their bond is immediate and profound. Roland, the hard, uncaring man of purpose, finds himself caring for this lost child. And Jake, lost and alone, finds a father figure in this strange, stern man with the ancient revolvers. Their meeting is a cornerstone, the first piece of the puzzle being set into place. But Ka is not always kind. The path it lays out is often paved with sacrifice. The gunslinger is faced with a terrible choice: save the boy or continue his pursuit of the man in black and the tower. In this turn of the wheel, his obsession wins. He lets the boy fall, a choice that will haunt him, a sin that he must carry. Yet even this tragedy serves the wheel. The memory of Jake, the guilt of his sacrifice, becomes a driving force that changes Roland, that begins to chip away at the stone around his heart. But the quartet is not complete. It needs more. And so Ka reaches across the void into other versions of New York at other points in time. It finds a young man named Eddie Dean, a heroin addict trapped in a life of crime. Eddie is a prisoner, both of his addiction and of the criminals he works for. When Roland draws him into Midworld, it is violent and confusing. Eddie is terrified, angry, and going through the agony of withdrawal. He seems like the last person you would choose for a divine quest. But Ka sees what Roland cannot. It sees the humor and the wit that Eddie uses as a shield. It sees his deep capacity for love and loyalty, and most importantly, it sees that Eddie is a prisoner who desperately wants to be free. In the gunslinger's world, he is given a chance to fight for that freedom, to become the hero he never believed he could be. He is the voice of doubt, the one who questions Roland's coldness, the one who brings laughter and humanity back into the grim quest. He is the second piece of the puzzle. Next, Ka finds a woman of incredible strength and incredible pain. Her name is Odetta Holmes. She is a wealthy, intelligent, and courageous civil rights activist from the 1960s. But Odetta's mind is a broken house. Years ago, a terrible act of violence fractured her personality, creating a second, hateful persona named Detta Walker. Detta is the opposite of Odetta in every way: cruel, vulgar, and filled with a burning rage against the world. Odetta lives in a wheelchair, having lost her legs in a subway accident. Detta sees this as a weakness to be despised. When Roland draws this woman into his world, he gets both of them. He gets the gentle, kind Odetta and the vicious, cunning Detta. It seems like a terrible mistake, a fatal flaw in Ka's plan. How can this broken woman help his quest? But again, Ka's purpose is deeper than it appears. The journey through Midworld, the dangers they face, forces these two warring personalities to confront each other. With the help of Roland and Eddie, they are forced to merge, to become one whole person again. This new person, Susanna, possesses Odetta's compassion and intelligence. and Deta's fierce survivability and ruthlessness. She is stronger, more complete than either of her previous selves. She is the warrior, the mother figure of the group, the steady hand. Ka did not bring a broken woman to Roland's side. It brought her to a place where she could finally be healed, where her brokenness could be forged into an unbreakable strength. She is the third piece. And what of the boy, Jake? The one Roland sacrificed. Kay is a wheel, and the story comes around again. Through a paradox, a tear in the fabric of reality caused by the gunslinger's actions, Jake is given a second chance. He is drawn back into Midworld, this time to stay. His return solidifies the quartet. He is the anchor, the one they all strive to protect. His unwavering belief in Roland, his pure love for his new family, becomes the emotional core of their group. And with him comes the final member, a creature of Midworld called a Billy Bumbler. The Bumbler, whom Jake names Oi, is a strange animal that looks like a mix between a raccoon and a dog, with a corkscrew tail and wide, intelligent golden eyes. He can speak a few words, mimicking the sounds he hears. Oi is not just a pet, he is a true member of the quartet. His loyalty is absolute, his courage is boundless. He represents the connection to the natural, magical world that Roland comes from, a world that is fading away. He is proof that the bonds of Ka are not limited to humankind. He is the small, brave heart of their fellowship. Together they are Roland's quartet, the gunslinger, the prisoner, the lady of shadows, the boy, and the bumbler. One from many. They are Ka's answer to the forces of darkness that seek to unmake all of reality. They argue, they laugh, they grieve, they fight for one another with a fierceness that defies logic. They are a family forged in the fires of destiny. Their journey together is the story of Ka in action. They stumble upon exactly the right clues at exactly the right time. They meet people who provide the help they need just when all hope seems lost. They survive impossible odds, not just through skill or luck, but because the wind is at their backs. The current is carrying them forward. This is not to say their path is easy. Ka is not a guardian angel. The river of destiny is filled with treacherous rapids and deadly waterfalls. The price of their journey is paid in blood, in pain, and in loss. Serving Ka often requires unimaginable sacrifice, but through it all, they are together, bound by a purpose far greater than any one of them. This concept of the quartet extends beyond just Roland's group. Throughout the many worlds, Ka is always at work, drawing people together. In a small town in Maine, a group of children calling themselves the Losers Club are drawn together to fight an ancient child-eating evil. They are a quartet. In the aftermath of a world-ending plague, a small band of survivors are drawn to an old woman in Nebraska, guided by dreams to make a stand against a dark man in the West. They are a quartet. The pattern repeats. When the forces of unmaking rise, the force of purpose responds by assembling its champions. It finds ordinary people, flawed and broken people, and binds them together, giving them the strength to do extraordinary things. It is a message of hope woven into the very fabric of this universe, a message that says you are not alone, that there is a purpose to the struggle, that even in the darkest of times the wheel turns, and the right people will be brought together to stand against the night. They are all, in their own way, servants of the same great will, the same great story, even if they never hear the words Dark Tower or know the name Roland Deschain. They are all fighting to keep their own small corner of reality from falling into the abyss. They are all children of Ka. Part 2. The structure of all things. In our first part we spoke of Ka. We described it as a force, a current of wind or water that guides all lives toward a singular purpose, but a force, no matter how powerful, must have something to act upon. A wind must have sails to fill, and a river must have banks to contain it. The purpose of Ka, the great destination it flows towards, is the preservation of the physical structure of reality itself. And at the very heart of that structure, the axle on which all of creation spins, stands the Dark Tower. To understand the quest of the gunslinger, we must first understand what he is fighting for. We must understand the cosmic architecture that he has sworn to protect. It is a structure of impossible scale, of ancient magic and forgotten science, and it is beginning to crumble. The song of creation is fading, and a discordant melody is taking its place. Our journey now takes us from the invisible current of Ka to the tangible physical pillars that hold up the sky. We are going to look at the center of all worlds, the great spokes that connect them, and the terrible sickness that threatens to bring it all crashing down into an endless, screaming void. Imagine, if you will, a field. It is a field so vast that it seems to have no end. And growing in this field, in every direction, as far as the eye can see, are roses. They are not the simple garden roses of our world. These roses are a deep, furious crimson, the color of blood that is still warm. They seem to hum with a strange energy. And if you listen closely, if you quiet your own mind, you can hear them singing. Each rose sings its own note, but together they form a single, beautiful and heartbreakingly sad chorus. This field is called Kanka no Rei, the red fields of none, and the song the roses sing is the song of life itself, the melody of creation. They are a manifestation of the magic that binds the universe, but many of the roses are wilting. Their petals are turning brown at the edges, their song growing faint and discordant. They are dying, and their death is a symptom of the greater illness that afflicts all worlds. And there, in the very center of this endless field of singing roses, it stands. The Dark Tower. Do not picture a castle or a fortress. Banish from your mind the image of bricks and mortar, of crenellations and battlements. The Dark Tower is something other. It appears as a column of dark grey, almost black stone, rising from the field of roses and climbing up into the clouds, and then beyond them, into the star-dusted void of space itself. It has no visible beginning and no conceivable end. It is a spike driven through the heart of all realities, pinning them together. The stone it is made from is smooth, seamless, and unbreakable. It feels ancient beyond all reckoning, as if it were not built, but rather that it has always been, and the universes themselves coalesced around it, like crystals forming on a string. Light does not seem to reflect from its surface in a normal way. It seems to drink the light, absorbing it into its profound darkness. Along its immense height, there are windows, millions of them. And each window does not look out onto the field of roses, but into another world, another time, another possibility. One window might show a world of towering, futuristic cities and flying cars. Another might show a primeval jungle where dinosaurs still roam. Another might show a world almost identical to our own, but where one small, crucial decision in history was made differently. The tower contains all stories, all possibilities. It is the library of what is, what was, and what could be. This is the function of the tower. It is the physical anchor of existence. Think of a grand, spinning carousel. The horses and chariots rising and falling are the individual worlds of the multiverse. Each one is unique, each one is beautiful, but without the central column holding them all up, the carousel would fly apart, its pieces scattering into the darkness. The tower is that central column. It is the axle of the great wheel of Ka. It is the stabilizing force that gives reality its structure, its shape, and its meaning. Without the tower, there is no up or down, no right or wrong, no yesterday or tomorrow. There is only chaos. There is only the uncreated darkness that existed before the first universe came into being. This darkness has a name. It is the Todash space. It is the void between worlds, a dimension of madness and hunger, inhabited by creatures that are not alive in any sense that we would understand. They are things that should not be, vast, formless horrors that would tear apart and devour all of creation if given the chance. The tower, and the structure it supports, is the only thing that holds them back. It is the lighthouse against the infinite stormy ocean of unreality. If the tower were to fall, the walls between the worlds would dissolve. The Todash darkness would flood in, and all the lights of all the worlds would be extinguished one by one, until only the Crimson King, the lord of that chaos, was left to rule over a kingdom of absolute nothing. What is the tower, truly? The gunslingers of old Roland's ancestors debated this for generations. Some believed it was a machine, a piece of unimaginable technology left behind by a race of ancient builders who had engineered the multiverse itself. They believed its purpose was to regulate the flow of time and space, a grand cosmic engine. Others believed it was a living thing, a kind of cosmic tree, like the legends of Yggdrasil from Norse mythology. They believed the Field of Roses was its garden, and the structure itself was its trunk, reaching for the heavens. And still others believed the tower was God, not a bearded man sitting on a cloud, but a conscious, intelligent, all-powerful entity. The mind of the universe given a physical form. The truth, as is often the case, is that it may be all of these things at once. It is the physical body of the God, known as Gan, the spirit of creation. It is a machine that maintains the integrity of the worlds. It is a living, breathing nexus of all power. It is the destination of every journey, the answer to every question. To climb the tower is the ultimate goal of the gunslinger's quest, not to conquer it, but to reach its summit and understand. The stories say that the inside of the tower is not a simple staircase. As one ascends, each floor, each room is a test. Each level forces the climber to confront their own life, their own past. They must face their triumphs and their failures, their loves and their losses. They must understand their own story before they can be worthy of understanding the story of all things. To reach the top room of the Dark Tower is to achieve a state of perfect knowledge, to see the entire tapestry of creation laid out before you, and to finally understand your own small but crucial place within it. This is why the tower holds such a powerful allure. It is the promise of an end to confusion, an end to suffering, an end to not knowing why. It is the promise of meaning. And it is this promise that drives Roland Deschain forward, through loss and pain that would have broken 1,000 lesser men. He seeks the tower because it is the only thing in his decaying world that still has a purpose. This idea of a central pillar of reality is not unique to Roland's mid-world. Echoes of the tower can be found in the myths and legends of countless worlds, including our own. We have our own names for it: the Axis Mundi, the World Pillar, Jacob's Ladder, reaching into heaven, the Tree of Life, Mount Olympus. All these stories from all these different cultures are the result of a faint, subconscious memory. They are the dreams of a universe that is dimly aware of its own structure. People on a world that has forgotten all magic and mystery might still feel a strange sense of awe when looking at a particularly tall skyscraper, feeling that it is reaching for something beyond the sky. They are all, in their own way, remembering the Dark Tower. It is the source of our need for a center, for a foundation upon which to build our understanding of the world. And so Roland's quest is not just a personal obsession. He is fighting for the secret truth that lies behind all of our own stories, our own religions, and our own philosophies. He is fighting for the center of it all. A great axle, however, is useless without the spokes that connect it to the wheel. The Dark Tower does not stand alone. It is supported, held in place by 6 massive conduits of energy that cross the entirety of the multiverse. These are the 6 beams of light. They are not made of physical matter. You could not touch one or stand upon one. They are more like magnetic lines of force, but on a cosmic scale. They are rivers of pure life force, of raw magic, that flow from the edges of creation into the tower at the center, and then back out again. They are the sinews of reality, the great support cables that give the multiverse its stability. There are 6 beams, and they cross at the tower, creating 12 spokes that radiate outwards to the very rim of existence. Where the beams are strong, reality is stable, life is vibrant, and magic works as it should. Where they are weak, reality begins to fray, and the world begins to sicken and die. To be near a beam is an awesome and humbling experience. Long before you can see any physical evidence of it, you can feel it. The air hums with a low, resonant frequency, a sound that you feel in your bones more than you hear with your ears. The hairs on your arms stand on end, as if in the presence of a powerful electrical charge. The light seems different, clearer, more vibrant. Colors appear sharper, and there is a sound, a song that whispers at the very edge of hearing. It is the music of the beam itself. The old people of Midworld knew these songs well. The most famous was the Song of the Turtle, a slow, deep, and profoundly peaceful melody that could calm the most troubled heart. It was the sound of the universe in harmony, the sound of a reality that was healthy and whole. But as Roland travels his path, he finds that the songs are growing weak. The hum is often discordant, and the beautiful music is sometimes replaced by a harsh, grating static. The beams are failing. At the end of each of the 12 spokes of the wheel there is a portal. These portals act as the anchors for the beams, a gateway from one world to another, and each one is watched over by a guardian. These 12 guardians are ancient and powerful beings, some born of magic, some built by technology, each representing a fundamental aspect of the universe. They are the living totems of the beams. The first beam. Roland and his quartet encounter is the beam of the bear and the turtle. At one end stands Shardik, the bear. Shardik was a colossal cyborg, a mechanical bear the size of a building, created by the Old Ones, an advanced civilization that has long since vanished. He was a marvel of technology, designed to be the immortal protector of his end of the beam. But when Roland's group finds him, he is a nightmare. Centuries of neglect and the decaying power of the beam have driven him mad. His metal body is rusted and broken, and the living tissue within is riddled with disease and parasites. He is no longer a guardian, he is a rampaging monster, a symbol of technology that has failed, of a great power that has turned cancerous. At the opposite end of this beam is Maturin, the turtle. The turtle is as magical as the bear is technological. Maturin is a creature of immense size and unimaginable age. He is one of the oldest beings in all of existence. He does not live on a single world, but rather he contains a universe within his shell. His wisdom is as vast as the cosmos he carries on his back. While the bear is a force of mindless, destructive energy, the turtle is a force of calm, deliberate creation. He is the guardian of stability, the anchor of wisdom. But like the bear, the turtle is also unwell. The sickness of the beam has affected him. He is old and tired, and he is slowly withdrawing from the affairs of the worlds. His song is growing faint. His great enemy, a creature of chaos known as It, has poisoned him from a neighboring reality. The struggle between the sick, insane bear and the sick, tired turtle is a perfect metaphor for the state of the multiverse. The forces of order are weakening, and the forces of chaos, both mindless and malicious, are on the rise. Another beam is that of the horse and the dog, another the eagle and the lion. Yet another is the wolf and the elephant, and the last pair is the bat and the hare. Each of these pairings represents a fundamental duality. The eagle is sight and royalty, the lion is courage and strength, the wolf is the wild, untamed predator, the call of the hunt. The elephant is ancient memory, wisdom and strength that does not need to be proven. Each of these 12 totems represents a primal force, an archetypal idea that gives the universe its texture and its meaning. In the days of Roland's ancestors, the guardians were honored. They were seen as the protectors of the natural order, the living embodiments of the power that gave the world life. But now they are mostly forgotten. Many have been destroyed, their portals dark and silent. Others, like Shardik, have gone rogue, becoming dangers to the very people they were meant to protect. Their decay is the most visible sign that the structure of all things is collapsing. The spokes of the great wheel are breaking one by one. This brings us to the great sickness of Roland's time, the problem that makes his quest so urgent. The world, as the people of Midworld say, has moved on. This is a gentle way of saying that it is falling apart. The fabric of reality is thinning, like a piece of cloth that has been stretched too far and worn too thin. The failure of the beams is the cause of this decay. As their power fades, the stable, predictable laws of nature begin to break down. The consequences are subtle at first, but they grow more and more terrifying over time. Time itself becomes unreliable. A traveler might set out on a 3-day journey, only to find that weeks have passed when he arrives. Or he might walk for a month and arrive at his destination the next day. The sun no longer follows its predictable path across the sky. Sometimes it rises in the east, but other times it appears in the north, or fails to appear at all for days on end, plunging the world into a long, cold twilight. The geography of the world is no longer stable. A mountain range that was on the horizon one day might be gone the next, replaced by a swamp. A river might change its course overnight. It is impossible to make an accurate map of Midworld, because Midworld is constantly and randomly reshaping itself. In the places where the beams are weakest, the fabric of reality can tear completely. These tears are known as thinnies. A thinny is one of the most dangerous phenomena in a dying world. It is a place where the barrier between one world and the Todash space, the monstrous void between worlds, has worn away. From a distance, a thinny looks like a shimmering, mercury-colored patch of reality. It might be as small as a puddle, or as large as a lake. As you get closer, you begin to hear its sound. It is a high, whining, endlessly hungry noise that seems to scratch at the inside of your skull. The sound is hypnotic, and many travelers have found themselves drawn towards it, unable to resist. The air around a thinny smells of ozone and rotting electricity. If a person or an animal gets too close, they are simply unmade. They are pulled apart, atom by atom, and sucked into the void. Their screams are added to the terrible whining chorus of the thinny itself. Thinnies are spreading across Midworld like a plague, making travel a deadly gamble. They are open wounds in the skin of the world, leaking chaos and madness into what remains of the land. This thinning of reality also causes worlds to bleed into one another. Objects and ideas from one level of the tower can slip through and appear on another. In the desolate wastelands of Midworld, Roland and his companions might find a rusted-out Chevrolet from 1950s America, half buried in the sand. They might find a modern-day traffic sign riddled with bullet holes, standing in the middle of a medieval-style town. The cultural leakage goes both ways. Words from the formal, ancient speech of Gilead might suddenly appear in the slang of a New York drug addict. A children's rhyme from our world might be known as a dark prophecy in another. This blending of worlds is a sign of the profound sickness of the tower. The walls that are supposed to keep the different realities separate are beginning to dissolve. The different stories are all bleeding together into one chaotic, incoherent narrative. This is the ultimate goal of the Crimson King: to erase all the distinct and beautiful stories of the multiverse and replace them with his own single story of absolute chaos and ruin. The sickness is not just external. It is internal as well. The magic of the world is fading. Old spells no longer work as they once did. Prophecies become muddled and unreliable. The lines of destiny, once clear and strong, become tangled and confused. Inversely, technology, especially old technology, begins to behave in strange and unpredictable ways. Ancient computers flicker back to life, speaking in riddles. Killer robots, dormant for centuries, reactivate and resume their long-forgotten programming. The world is caught in a terrible limbo, stranded between a magical past that no longer functions and a technological future that is decayed and insane. This is the world that has moved on. It is a world haunted by the ghosts of what it once was, and terrified of the empty chaos it is becoming. This is the world that Roland Deschain is trying to save. His quest is not simply to climb a tall building. It is a desperate race against time to mend the broken beams, to heal the sickness of his world, and to restore the structure of all things before it collapses entirely. He is not just a gunslinger seeking a mythical tower. He is a doctor trying to save a dying patient. And that patient is reality itself. The stage is set. We have seen the great force of purpose, Ka, and now we have seen the cosmic structure it is meant to protect. A great tower held in place by 6 failing beams in a universe that is coming apart at the seams. And so the question becomes, what is causing this decay? Is it a natural process, the universe simply winding down like an old clock? Or is there an intelligent, malicious force actively working to destroy it? The answer, as we shall see, is the latter. There is a spider at the center of this decaying web, a king of chaos who has marshaled his own forces to unmake creation. And his chief weapons in this war are not armies or bombs, but the stolen minds of psychic children. Part 3. The Unmaking. We have now seen the grand and delicate architecture of Stephen King's multiverse, a central dark tower, the axle of all worlds supported by 6 beams of light, the spokes that hold the wheel of existence together. And we have seen the symptoms of its illness, a world that has moved on, where time and space have come undone, where reality itself is thinning like worn cloth. This decay, this sickness, is not a natural process. It is not the universe slowly winding down with age. It is a demolition. It is a deliberate, targeted and malevolent act of cosmic vandalism. There is a will behind the destruction, an ancient and powerful consciousness that despises creation and seeks to return all things to the screaming, empty chaos from which they were born. This is the force of the unmaking, the shadow that opposes the light. And at its heart sits a mad king, a lord of spiders and discord, whose single burning ambition is to hear the final scream of a dying multiverse. To understand the threat to the tower, we must first understand the mind of the one who wishes to tear it down. We must understand the Crimson King. The Crimson King is not a simple villain. He is not a man who seeks to rule the world for power or riches. Such goals are far too small for him. He is a metaphysical force, the living embodiment of chaos, entropy, and insanity. His true name is Loss, and he is a being born of a terrible and unnatural union. His lineage is split down the middle between the 2 greatest forces in the universe. On one side, he is descended from Arthur Eld, the legendary king of all world, the ancestor of the gunslingers. From this side, he inherits a connection to the white, to the force of order, purpose, and the Dark Tower itself. But his other parent was a creature from the Prim, the unformed chaos that existed before the worlds were made. This creature was a demon of the highest order, a queen of the spiders, a being of pure, mindless destruction. This unholy parentage created a being at war with himself from the moment of his conception. He is half human, half monster, half order, half chaos. And this internal contradiction drove him completely and irrevocably insane. He hates the part of him that is connected to the tower, to purpose, to his father's legacy. He despises it. He wants to destroy it, and in order to destroy that part of himself, he believes he must destroy the source of that purpose, the Dark Tower itself. His goal is not conquest, it is erasure. He wishes to tear down the tower, break the beams, and collapse all the infinite worlds of the multiverse back into the primordial chaos from which they came. He wants to unmake reality. He desires to be the only conscious being left, the king of a silent, empty kingdom of absolute nothing. He is cosmic nihilism, given a crown and a scepter. His madness is his defining trait. In his moments of rage, he can be a petulant, screaming child. In his moments of cunning, he is a master manipulator, a chess player moving pieces across a board that spans 1,000,000 worlds. He is the ultimate narcissist, a being so consumed with his own internal pain and rage that he is willing to annihilate everything that is, just to find a moment's peace. This makes him far more terrifying than a villain with a rational motive. You cannot reason with him. You cannot bargain with him. You can only stand against him or be consumed by the wave of his insanity. The Crimson King's influence spreads like a poison through the veins of the multiverse. His very existence corrupts. He rarely acts directly, preferring to work through proxies and agents. He is the secret patron of countless evils across the many worlds. Randall Flagg, the walking dude, the dark man who appears in so many stories, is one of his chief lieutenants. The monstrous child-eating entity from the story of It is a creature of the Todash space, a being of chaos that serves the king's ultimate purpose by spreading fear and weakening the world. The vampires of Salem's Lot, the possessed machines, the human monsters who commit terrible acts of violence. They all, knowingly or unknowingly, serve the Red King. Every act of senseless chaos, every moment of terror, every time an innocent person is made to suffer, it is a small victory for the Crimson King. It is one more note of discord added to the song of creation, making it weaker, making it more vulnerable to his final assault. His symbol is the unblinking eye, a single red eye filled with madness and hate. Like the eye of Sauron in other tales, it is a symbol of his far-reaching gaze, his ability to see across the worlds and find the cracks, the weaknesses, the souls that he can twist to his purpose. It is the eye of the spider, watching from the center of a vast interdimensional web. His greatest servants are not human. They are the Tahin, a race of creatures with human bodies, but the heads of animals, most often birds like vultures or crows. They are intelligent, cruel, and utterly devoted to their king. They serve as his soldiers, his spies, and his taskmasters. Alongside them are the Kantoi, or the low men. They appear human from a distance, but their skin is waxy and artificial, and they are often described as having the heads of rats or other vermin beneath their human masks. They are the petty bureaucrats of evil, the foot soldiers who carry out the dirty work of kidnapping and terrorizing those who stand against the king. These creatures are the physical manifestation of the king's will, spreading his sickness wherever they go. The story of the Crimson King is also a story of failure, which only fuels his rage. At one point, long before the events of Roland's final quest, the king amassed a great army and laid siege to the Dark Tower itself. He believed he could storm its gates and tear it down with his own power, but the tower, the physical body of God, was far more powerful than he imagined. It repelled his attack, and in the process, it trapped him. He did not conquer the tower, he became its prisoner. He was imprisoned on a balcony high up on the tower's spire, unable to ascend, unable to descend. He is a king trapped in his own castle, a cosmic force of destruction, confined to a single porch overlooking the entirety of a creation he despises but cannot touch. From this perch, he rages. He screams and throws things, his tantrums echoing through the worlds. But his imprisonment does not make him powerless. From his balcony, his mind can still reach out. He can still whisper into the dreams of madmen. He can still direct his armies. And it was from this prison that he conceived of a new plan, a more subtle and insidious way to achieve his goal. If he could not knock the tower down with brute force, he would instead erode its foundations. He would rot it from the inside out by breaking the beams that gave it its strength. And to do this, he needed a very special kind of weapon, a weapon that could not be forged from steel or fire. He needed a weapon made of the human mind. He needed the breakers. The central problem facing the Crimson King was this: how do you destroy a beam of light? A beam is not a physical object. It is a conduit of pure metaphysical energy, the life force of the universe. You cannot attack it with swords or guns. You cannot blow it up with bombs. A physical army is useless against a conceptual foundation. To attack a beam, you need a weapon that can operate on the same conceptual level. You need a force that can attack reality itself. And the king found that force in the psychic potential of sentient minds. Across the infinite worlds, a tiny fraction of the population is born with what we might call psychic abilities. In the language of the tower, they are known as the breaking strain. There are two main types. The first are telepaths, those who can read and project thoughts. They can communicate mind to mind, see memories, and influence emotions. The second are telekinetics, those who can move objects with the power of their will. They can lift a stone, bend a spoon, or if they are powerful enough, tear a building apart without ever touching it. These abilities are rare and often misunderstood in the worlds where they appear. The people who have them are often feared, outcast, or they learn to hide their gifts to live a normal life. But the Crimson King and his servants see them not as strange or special people, but as a natural resource, a source of living energy to be harvested and exploited. They are the uranium the king needs to build his atomic bomb. The agents of the Red King, the Low Men, and the Taheen became hunters. They traveled the multiverse from modern-day America to feudal-style worlds of magic, searching for individuals with strong breaking potential. They had devices that could detect these abilities. They were particularly interested in children, as their minds were often more powerful and more malleable. They would watch, they would wait, and when the time was right, they would steal them. One day, a child with a special gift might be playing in their backyard. The next, they would awaken in a cold, sterile room, in a world they did not recognize, their old life gone forever. They were kidnapped, ripped from their families and their homes, to become the unwilling soldiers in a war they did not understand, fighting on the side of absolute evil. They became the property of the Crimson King. They became the Breakers. Their destination was a prison compound in a desolate corner of Midworld called Devar Toy, which in the high speech means the King's Prison. The Breakers, however, knew it by another name, Algul-Ciento, which translates to Blue Heaven. This name was a piece of cruel, ironic propaganda. The place was a hell, but it was a hell bathed in a constant, cold, artificial blue light. The light came from the technology that powered the facility, and it was said to have a dampening effect on psychic abilities, making it harder for the prisoners to organize or resist. Imagine this place. It is a collection of long, low, concrete buildings surrounded by high fences and guard towers. The landscape around it is a featureless, red-brown desert under a sickly yellow sky. There is no natural life here. No trees, no birds, no insects, only dust and the hum of machinery. The guards are the Taheen and the Kantoi, armed with advanced weaponry, their animal and rat-like faces watching every move the prisoners make. There is no escape. The life of a breaker in Algul-Ciento was a monotonous nightmare of routine and despair. They were awakened each day by a harsh bell. They were fed a tasteless, nutrient paste in a sterile mess hall, They were allowed a brief period for exercise in a dusty yard under the watchful eyes of the guards. They slept in long, open barracks, their dreams haunted by memories of the homes and families they would never see again. They were humans, but they were treated like livestock, or more accurately, like batteries. Their entire existence was reduced to a single purpose, a single daily task. That task was the breaking. Every day after their morning meal, the breakers would be marched in silent lines to the workstations. These were large halls filled with rows upon rows of strange, throne-like chairs. Each chair was a complex piece of machinery covered in wires and electrodes. The breakers would be strapped into these chairs, helmets would be lowered over their heads, and the machines would be switched on. The purpose of these machines was to harness, amplify, and focus the breakers' collective mental power. A single psychic, even a powerful one, could not hope to damage a beam, but the focused, amplified power of hundreds of them, working together day after day, year after year, for decades, that was a different story. That was a force that could erode mountains. The breakers were given their target. On a large screen at the front of the hall, they would be shown an image, a representation of one of the 6 beams of light, and they would be given a single command: break it. They would then have to focus their minds, their telepathic and telekinetic energy, into a single sustained psychic scream. They would pour all of their will, all of their power, into an invisible lance of mental force aimed at the conceptual structure of the beam. For the breakers, the experience was agony. It was a headache that filled the universe. It was the mental equivalent of pushing a massive boulder uphill for 8 hours straight. They could feel their minds pushing against something ancient, vast, and alive. They could feel the tiny, microscopic fractures that their combined power was creating in the structure of reality. And they knew, with a soul-crushing certainty, that with every ounce of their effort, they were helping to destroy everything. The effect of their work was slow, but relentless. It was like the erosion of water on stone. Each day they chipped away an infinitesimal piece of the beam's integrity. The first day, it was nothing. The first year, it was barely measurable. But after decades of this constant grinding pressure, the damage began to show. The beam would weaken. Its song would become discordant. Its power would begin to fail. This was the source of the sickness that was spreading across the multiverse. This was why the world was moving on. It was not a natural decay. It was the result of the forced psychic labor of hundreds of stolen souls toiling away in a forgotten prison at the edge of nowhere. Their daily monotonous work was the single greatest act of destruction in the history of creation. The masters of Algul used many methods to keep their prisoners compliant. The ever-present blue light kept their powers suppressed when they were not in the work chairs. The food was sometimes laced with sedatives to keep them docile, but their greatest tool was psychological manipulation. The breakers were constantly told that their old worlds were gone, destroyed. They were told that their families had forgotten them. They were told that the Crimson King had already won, and that their work was simply a formality, the final act in a play that was already over. They were encouraged to forget their pasts, to forget their own names, and to embrace their new purpose as servants of the Algul. Hope was the enemy, and the guards did everything they could to extinguish it. But hope is a difficult thing to kill. Despite the propaganda, despite the despair, the breakers resisted in small ways. They would use their telepathy to have secret conversations, sharing memories of their old lives like precious jewels. They would try to shield their minds from the guards, creating small pockets of mental privacy. They developed their own slang, their own culture, a community built in the heart of their shared trauma, and they clung to legends. The greatest of these legends was the story of Ted Brautigan. Ted was an incredibly powerful telepath, stolen from America in the 1960s. For a time, he had managed to escape Algul. and he lived in hiding in our world for many years, a story told in another of King's novels. He was relentlessly hunted by the low men, because a breaker of his power could not be allowed to remain free. Eventually, he was recaptured and returned to the prison, but his story gave the others hope. It was proof that escape was possible. It was proof that the king's servants were not all-powerful. Ted became a leader among the breakers, a quiet center of resistance, keeping the flame of rebellion alive in the darkest of places. This is the true tragedy of the breakers. They are not villains. They are victims. They are some of the most powerful and special individuals in the multiverse, but their gifts have been turned into a curse. Their minds, capable of creating art, of healing, of communicating in the most profound way, have been weaponized. They have been turned into psychic slaves, forced to use the very essence of their being to dismantle reality. They are the ultimate example of the Crimson King's evil. He does not just destroy, he perverts. He takes something good and beautiful like a psychic gift and twists it into a tool of unmaking. The fight for the Dark Tower, then, is not just a fight against a mad king and his army of monsters. It is a rescue mission. Roland and his quartet are not just trying to save the beams. They are trying to save the people who are being forced to destroy them. The conflict is not a simple battle of good versus evil. It is a struggle to liberate the innocent, to free the slaves whose chains are not made of iron, but of their own magnificent captive minds. The will of the Crimson King is the engine of destruction, but the breakers are its fuel. Without them, his plan to unmake the multiverse would fail. And so, their prison, Algul becomes one of the most important battlegrounds in the entire war for the Tower. It is a place of profound sadness, but also of incredible importance. The fate of all worlds rests on the shoulders of these forgotten prisoners, and the hope that someday, someone will come to set them free. Part 4. The Agents of Purpose. In the vast and echoing expanse of our story, we have so far walked in the shadow. We have spoken of the Crimson King, the mad god of chaos, and the terrible grinding engine of destruction he built in the prison of Algul. We have detailed his method, using the stolen minds of psychic children, the breakers, to chip away at the very foundations of reality. It is a vision of cosmic horror, a slow and deliberate unmaking of all that is. But the universe, by its very nature, seeks balance. For every force, there is a counter-force. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The scream of chaos cannot exist without the song of creation to oppose it. The driving will to destroy is met by an equally powerful, though far quieter, will to preserve. This is the other side of the coin. This is the force known as the White. It is the deep and abiding purpose that flows from the heart of the Dark Tower itself, and it has its own agents, its own soldiers, and its own final desperate plan to save the multiverse from the encroaching dark. Our journey now turns from the shadow to the light, to the ancient order that served it, and to the last, lonely remnants of its power, embodied in a single, obsessive man. To understand the White, you must first understand what it is not. It is not a god in the way we typically imagine one. It is not a being that answers prayers or performs miracles or takes a direct hand in the affairs of men. The White is a principle. It is the fundamental law of creation, the tendency of the universe towards structure, complexity, and meaning. If the Crimson King represents the force of entropy, the desire for all things to decay into simple disordered chaos, then the White represents the opposite force, the drive for things to organize, to grow, to become more complex and beautiful. It is the force that pulls a cloud of cosmic dust together to form a star. It is the code within a seed that tells it how to grow into a tree. It is the instinct in a collection of cells to form a living creature. It is the impulse in a group of people to build a city. It is the spirit of order, the blueprint of existence. This great, overarching principle of creation is not without a consciousness. The mind behind the white, the being that is the source of this purpose, is known as Gan. Like the white, Gan is not a personified deity. Gan's physical body is the Dark Tower itself. The tower is not a monument built to honor Gan. It is the living, physical form of Gan. The 6 beams that support it are like its limbs or its senses, reaching out into the multiverse. All the infinite worlds that spin around the tower are, in a sense, the thoughts of Gan, the endless stories and possibilities that play out within the divine mind. Gan does not rule the universe. Gan is the universe. Its health is tied directly to the health of the tower and the beams. The attack on the beams is not just an attack on the structure of reality, it is a direct assault on the body and mind of God. Gan, being the totality of existence, does not act in a direct way. It does not send angels or smite its enemies with lightning. Its will is expressed through a much more subtle and pervasive medium. The will of Gan is Ka. The river of destiny that we spoke of in our first part is the current of Gan's purpose, flowing through all of time and space. Ka is the instrument the white uses to counter the chaos of the red. While the Crimson King uses force, fear, and slavery to achieve his goals, the white, through Ka, uses guidance, destiny, and connection. It does not command, it influences. It does not conquer, it convinces. It whispers to the right people at the right time. It arranges for a chance meeting between 2 strangers who will go on to change the world. It places a crucial clue in the path of a weary traveler. It assembles the quartets, the families of destiny, to act as its antibodies against the infection of chaos. The struggle between the red and the white, between the Crimson King and Gan, is the ultimate conflict, the great story that underlies all other stories. It is the dance of creation and destruction. The Crimson King's methods are loud, violent, and obvious. He builds prisons, he employs armies of monsters, he shatters the minds of his victims. His is the power of the sledgehammer, the explosion, the scream. The white's methods are quiet, patient, and often invisible. Its power is in the slow growth of a forest, the turning of the seasons, the unwavering loyalty between friends. It is the power of the seed, the tide, and the whisper. For eons, this balance was maintained. The forces of chaos would rise, and the forces of purpose would assemble to meet them. But in the time of Roland's quest, the balance has been broken. The red is ascendant. The agents of chaos are organized and powerful, while the agents of purpose are scattered, broken, and all but forgotten. The great army of the white is gone, and only its memory remains. That army was the Order of the Gunslingers. Long ago, in the time before the world moved on, the white had a dedicated order of knights sworn to its service. They were the gunslingers of Gilead, and Roland Deschain is the last of their line. To understand Roland, you must first understand what he has lost. You must understand the world that created him and the sacred duty he inherited. The gunslingers were descended from the line of Arthur Eld, a legendary king from a world that may have been a distant ancestor of our own. He was the King Arthur of his reality, a figure of immense power and purpose, who brought a brief age of light to the darkness. His sigil was the rose, and his purpose was the tower. He traveled to Midworld and established a kingdom, and his bloodline was forever bound to the protection of the beams. His descendants formed a feudal aristocracy, a knightly class whose right to rule was based not on wealth, but on their sworn duty to serve the white. They were far more than just men with quick reflexes and accurate aim. They were a monastic order of warrior philosophers. Their purpose was to be the physical manifestation of the white's will in Midworld. They were the guardians of the old knowledge, the protectors of the weak, and the sworn enemies of all who would serve the red. They understood the nature of the tower and the beams, and their entire society was structured around defending them. Their capital city, Gilead, was a place of breathtaking beauty and order, a shining beacon in a world that was already beginning to show signs of decay. It was a city of high spires and strong walls, a testament to the power of purpose and community. It was the heart of the White's strength in Midworld, a fortress of light against the encroaching shadows. The training of a gunslinger began in early childhood. Boys of the line of Eld were taught that their lives were not their own. They belonged to the tower. They endured grueling physical conditioning, mastering not just their famous revolvers, but swords, lances, and unarmed combat. They studied history, philosophy, and the ancient sciences of the great old ones, the advanced civilization that had fallen long ago. They were taught to read the signs of the world, to understand the flow of Ka, and to recognize the machinations of their enemies. Their training was designed to strip away their individual egos and forge them into perfect instruments of the White. It was a process of breaking them down and building them back up as something stronger, something more focused, something with a singular, unwavering purpose. The culmination of this training was a rite of passage. At the age of 14, a young trainee had to challenge his teacher to a battle. The trainee could choose the time and the weapon, but the battle had to be fought. It was a test not of strength, but of will. The trainee was not expected to win in a physical sense. He was expected to stand his ground, to face his teacher without fear, and to prove that he had become a man. To pass this test was to earn his guns, the legendary revolvers that were the symbol of his order. These weapons were often ancient, passed down from father to son for generations. They were heavy, long-barreled revolvers forged from the metal of Arthur Eld's own melted-down sword, Excalibur. They were more than just weapons. They were holy relics, physical links to their sacred purpose. To carry the guns was to accept the burden of their history and the responsibility for the future. The core of their philosophy, the very heart of what it meant to be a gunslinger, was contained in their creed, a litany that every trainee had to learn until it was as natural as breathing. It began, "I do not aim with my hand. He who aims with his hand has forgotten the face of his father." This first line was a lesson in humility and purpose. To aim with the hand was to focus only on the physical act, on one's own skill and strength. It was an act of ego. But to remember the face of one's father was to remember the entire line of gunslingers that came before, to remember the sacred duty that had been passed down through generations. It was a reminder that the act of shooting was not a personal one. It was an act performed in service to a tradition, a lineage, and a purpose far greater than oneself. It meant that every action a gunslinger took was connected to his heritage and his honor. The litany continued, "I aim with my eye." This was a command to see clearly, not just to see the target, but to see the situation for what it truly was. It was a call for perception, for clarity of thought, for stripping away all distractions and focusing only on the truth of the moment. A gunslinger could not be swayed by fear or anger or pity. He had to see the world as it was and act upon that clear-sighted knowledge. To aim with the eye was to be a force of absolute clarity in a world of confusion and lies. Next, I shoot with my mind. This went beyond physical skill or clear sight. This was about intention. The physical act of pulling the trigger was only the final, smallest part of the process. The true shot was fired in the mind long before the hammer fell. It was the focusing of the will, the channeling of a lifetime of training and purpose into a single, decisive moment. It was an understanding that the will, the intent, was the true weapon. The gun was merely the tool that the mind used to express that will upon the world. This is why a true gunslinger's speed and accuracy seemed supernatural. It was not just fast muscles, it was a mind that had achieved a perfect Zen-like unity with its purpose. And the litany concluded with the most difficult and profound line, "I kill with my heart." This sounds like a contradiction. We associate the heart with love and compassion, not with killing. But for the gunslingers, this was the most important part of their creed. It meant that they did not kill with hatred or with anger or for personal pleasure. They killed only when it was necessary, when it was the will of Ka that a life must end to preserve the greater balance. To kill with the heart meant to understand the terrible weight of taking a life, to do it with a solemn respect for the act itself, and to accept the burden that it placed upon one's soul. It was an acknowledgement that their work was a tragic necessity, a sorrowful duty performed in the service of the light. They were judges and executioners, but they were not murderers. This creed was what separated them from common killers. It was what made them agents of purpose, rather than agents of simple violence. For centuries, this order of gunslingers held the line. They guarded the portals of the beams. They fought the creatures that crept in from the Todash darkness. They put down the petty warlords and tyrants who served the Crimson King's chaos. They were the thin, steady line of order in a world that was slowly slipping towards madness. But their strength became their downfall. They were rigid, proud, and slow to change. They were an order built for a world of clear lines between right and wrong, a world of honor and tradition. But the world was changing, and the agents of the Crimson King were masters of the new kind of warfare, the warfare of ideas. The fall of Gilead was not accomplished by a frontal assault. It was done through a slow and patient campaign of infiltration, corruption, and psychological warfare. The chief architect of their demise was a man named John Farson, who called himself the Good Man. He was a charismatic revolutionary leader who promised to liberate the common people of Midworld from the rigid aristocratic rule of the gunslingers. He spoke of democracy, of equality, of a world where all men would be their own masters. His words were poison, perfectly crafted to exploit the growing resentment that the Outer Territories felt towards the powerful, centralized city of Gilead. Many of the common people had come to see the gunslingers not as protectors, but as aloof and privileged rulers who had forgotten them. Farson fanned these flames of resentment into a raging fire. But John Farson was not what he seemed. He was an agent of the Crimson King. His true goal was not to build a better world, but to tear down the old one. He was a force of chaos, wearing the mask of a liberator. Behind him stood the true master of his rebellion, the dark magician Randall Flagg, the gunslinger's ancient nemesis and the primary servant of the Red King. Together, they orchestrated the slow collapse of the gunslinger's society. They used spies to sow distrust within the gunslingers' ranks. They used assassins to eliminate key leaders. They used their influence to turn other powerful factions against Gilead. They armed Farson's armies with a mix of old-world technology and dark magic, creating a fighting force that the gunslingers, with their traditional methods, were unprepared to face. The fall was slow, and then all at once. The Outer Territories fell one by one to Farson's rebellion. The gunslingers found themselves isolated, surrounded, fighting a war against an enemy who seemed to be everywhere at once. Roland, still a young man, saw his home, his friends, and his entire way of life crumble around him. The final battle took place at a place called Jericho Hill. There, the last of the true gunslingers, a small band of Roland's comrades, made their final stand against Farson's overwhelming forces. It was a battle of unbelievable heroism and utter tragedy. They fought with the skill and courage of their ancestors, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. One by one they fell, until only Roland was left, wounded and alone on a hill of the dead, the last gunslinger in a world that had no more use for them. Gilead had fallen. The agents of the White had been wiped out. The path to the beams now lay open and undefended. This is the world that Roland inherits. He's not just a man on a quest. He is a ghost. He is the living memory of a dead world, the sole survivor of a fallen order. The weight of this loss, the guilt of his survival, is the fuel for his obsession. His personal desire to reach the tower and demand answers from whatever god lives there becomes intertwined with his inherited duty. He is all that is left of the White's defense. This is why his quest is Ka's final gambit. The old way failed. The proud, honorable and rigid order of the gunslingers was broken by the subtle chaos of the modern age. So Ka, the will of Gan, had to try a new approach. It could no longer rely on an army. It had to put all of its faith into a single, broken and deeply flawed individual. Roland's obsession, his coldness, his willingness to sacrifice anything and anyone for his quest, these are all terrible flaws. But from Ka's perspective, they are also his greatest strengths. A better, more compassionate man might have given up. He might have settled down or decided the cost was too high. But Roland is incapable of stopping. His obsession is a kind of armor. It makes him immune to the despair that would have crushed a lesser man. Ka uses Roland's own personal damage as a tool. The universe has chosen a broken instrument because he is the only one who will not shatter under the immense pressure of this final desperate task. But even Roland cannot do it alone. The old quartets of the gunslingers, groups of trained warriors who all thought and acted alike, failed. So Ka gives Roland a new kind of quartet, one suited for this new broken world. It does not give him more gunslingers. It gives him an addict, a disabled woman with a fractured mind, and a young boy from a world where honor is just a word in a book. It gives him Eddie, Susanna, and Jake. This new family is not a weapon of war in the old sense. They are a weapon of the heart. Their purpose is not just to help Roland fight monsters and follow the path. Their purpose is to heal him. Their love, their humor, their humanity are all meant to chip away at the stone that has grown around Roland's heart. They are meant to remind him of the very things he is fighting for: love, connection, and hope. They are there to teach him that the way to save the universe is not just to kill with the heart, but to live with it as well. And so, the agents of purpose are reassembled, not as a shining army from a great city, but as a small, dysfunctional family walking through a dying land. The White, the great force of order, has been reduced to a handful of broken souls. They are the final, flickering flame of hope against the overwhelming darkness of the Crimson King. Their path leads them towards the failing beams, towards the prison of the breakers, and ultimately towards the Dark Tower itself. They are the last gambit in a war that has been raging since the dawn of time, and the fate of all worlds now rests upon their weary shoulders. Part 5. The end of the path is the beginning. We have traveled a long and winding path together through the strange and decaying landscape of a multiverse in peril. We began with the invisible wind of Ka, the force of purpose that pushes all things toward their appointed end. We then looked upon the physical structure that this force protects, the great and terrible Dark Tower, the axle of all creation, and the 6 beams of light that are its supporting spokes. From there, we descended into the shadow to meet the architect of its destruction, the insane Crimson King, and to witness the tragic fate of his psychic slaves, the Breakers, whose stolen minds are the weapon he uses to unmake reality. Finally, we turned to the flickering light, to the memory of the White and its fallen agents, the gunslingers, and to the last broken remnant of that order, Roland Deschain and his quartet, the universe's final, desperate hope. And now, we have reached the end of the path. This is the place where all these threads converge. The battlefield is set, the pieces are in their final positions, and the great cosmic dance between creation and destruction must at last be played out. This is the story of the endgame, of the terrible sacrifices demanded by destiny, and of the shocking, profound truth that awaits a traveler at the center of all things. It is the story of what happens when the irresistible force of a gunslinger's obsession finally meets the immovable object of the Dark Tower. The conflict between the White and the Red, between Gan and the Crimson King, is not a war of armies in the traditional sense. It is a war of principles, a struggle between two opposing philosophies of existence. The Crimson King's philosophy is one of brute force, of domination and slavery. His power is derived from taking the power of others, from twisting their wills to his own. The Breakers are the perfect example of his method. He takes powerful, unique individuals and reduces them to a single monolithic function. He erases their individuality and turns them into a homogeneous, efficient engine of destruction. His army of Tahin and Kantoi operates on the same principle, absolute obedience born of fear. His is the power of the clenched fist, the screaming command, the master's whip. It is a philosophy that seeks to simplify, to reduce, to tear down all complexity until only one will, his will, remains. It is loud, it is ugly, and it is undeniably effective. For a long time, it has been winning. The philosophy of the White is the exact opposite. Its power does not come from domination, but from connection. It does not erase individuality, it celebrates it. Gan's will, expressed through Ka, works by bringing different, unique individuals together and allowing their strengths to complement each other. Roland's Katet is the ultimate expression of this method. It is a group of profoundly different people, drawn from different worlds and different times, each with their own strengths, their own flaws, and their own loud opinions. Roland is the purpose, the unyielding drive. Eddie is the humor and the heart, the one who questions the grim necessity of the quest. Susanna is the pragmatism and the strength, the warrior who is also the nurturing mother. Jake is the innocence and the faith, the unwavering belief in the good of their cause. Oi is the pure, unquestioning loyalty that transcends species. They are not an efficient, silent army. They are a messy, loud, and argumentative family, and in that messiness lies their true strength. The Crimson King's power is the power of one, amplified by the stolen energy of many. The Quartet's power is the power of many, willingly joined together to become one. It is the power of synergy, of love, of a bond that is chosen, even if that choice was guided by destiny. This fundamental difference in philosophy defines the final stages of the war. The battle is not fought for territory, but for the beams themselves, and by the time Roland and his companions reach the final stages of their quest, only 2 of the 6 beams are left holding the tower in place. The others have already been broken, their guardians killed or driven mad, their portals dark. The entire weight of the multiverse now rests on these last 2 threads. One is the beam of the bear and the turtle, the one they have followed for so long. The other is the beam of the eagle and the lion. If these 2 fall, the tower falls. The final battlefields, therefore, are the towns and lands that lie along these last 2 conduits of power. It is here that the agents of the Red and the agents of the White have their final confrontations. The forces of the Crimson King are not just monsters. His influence is insidious, and he finds fertile ground in the hearts of desperate men. In the final days, Roland's group must contend with human collaborators, people who have willingly allied themselves with the forces of the Red. Some are tempted by promises of power, others are simply frightened, choosing to side with what they believe is the winning team. Still others are true believers, nihilists who share the king's desire to see the world burn. These human enemies are in some ways more dangerous than the Tahin or the Kantoi. They represent the sickness of the spirit, the moment when people lose hope and actively choose to help destroy their own world. The gunslingers must fight not just for the structure of reality, but for the soul of its inhabitants. But their primary target, the great strategic objective of the White, is not a place, but a person, or rather, a group of people. The key to saving the beams is to disarm the weapon that is being used to destroy them. The key is to liberate the breakers of Algul Siento. This mission is the turning point of the entire war. Roland and his quartet, with the help of allies they have gathered along the path of the beam, stage a direct assault on the prison. It is an impossible mission, a handful of fighters against a fortified compound filled with the king's shock troops. But Ka is with them. The wind is at their backs. They are guided to the weaknesses in the prison's defenses. They find the right tools at the right time. Their attack is a perfect example of the White's power. A small, focused application of purpose and courage that achieves what a massive army could not. The liberation of the breakers is a moment of profound significance. When the gunslingers break through the prison's defenses, they are greeted not as conquerors, but as saviors. The breakers, who have lived for decades in a state of hopeless despair, are suddenly faced with the impossible reality of freedom. For the first time, they see the sky without a fence in the way. For the first time, they feel the wind on their faces without the smell of ozone and machinery. And for the first time, they are given a choice. They can use their immense psychic power for themselves. They can flee, or they can fight. In this moment, the philosophy of the White is vindicated. Given a choice between chaos and purpose, between selfishness and community, the breakers choose purpose. Led by the powerful telepath Ted Brautigan, they turn their collective mental power, the very force that had been used to unmake the world, into a tool of salvation. They use their telekinesis to fight back against the guards. They use their telepathy to coordinate their escape. And most importantly, they combine their power to open a door, a magical gateway to another world, a safe place where they can finally be free. They do not just save themselves, they save the other human prisoners of the compound as well. Their first act of free will is an act of creation and compassion, a direct and powerful refutation of the Crimson King's entire philosophy. With this one action, the King's greatest weapon is not just broken, it is turned against him. The engine of destruction becomes an engine of hope. But the price for this victory, as is always the case on the path of Ka, is steep. The river of destiny demands its sacrifices. The first to fall is Eddie Dean. In the chaos of the battle for Algul Siento, he is shot and mortally wounded. His death is a staggering blow to the quartet and to Roland in particular. Eddie was more than just a companion. He was the one who taught the cold, obsessive gunslinger how to be human again. He was the voice of humor in the face of despair, the defiant heart that refused to be broken. He was the first person in a long, long time whom Roland had come to truly love as a brother and a son. As Eddie lies dying, he makes Roland promise that he will not give up, that he will see the quest through to the end. Eddie's sacrifice is a testament to how far he had come. He was drawn into this world as a prisoner, an addict, a man defined by his weaknesses. He dies a hero, a gunslinger in his own right, giving his life to save hundreds of innocent people. His death solidifies Roland's resolve, but it also takes a piece of his newly rediscovered heart with it. The gunslinger is a little colder, a little harder, as he continues his journey. The path of the beam then leads the remaining members of the quartet to a strange and unexpected place, our world. They discover that the health of the beams is not just tied to the magical guardians, but also to the power of story and imagination. They learn that their entire quest, the fate of the Dark Tower itself, is inexplicably linked to the life of a single writer in the state of Maine, a man named Stephen King. It is a shocking revelation. Their reality is a fiction being written in another, but they also learn that this connection is a two-way street. The forces of the Crimson King are aware of this link, and they know that if they can kill the writer, they can silence the Song of the Tower at its source. Roland and his companions realize that they must protect the creator of their own story in order to save their world. This leads to the second great sacrifice of the endgame. A van, driven by an agent of the Red, is about to run down the writer. Jake, the boy who Roland once let fall, the boy who he came to love as his own true son, does not hesitate. He pushes the writer out of the way, taking the full impact of the vehicle himself. He dies on a roadside in Maine, a world away from the fantasy land he had come to call home. His death is perhaps the most tragic of all. Jake was the heart of the quartet. He was the reason they all remembered what it meant to be a family. His unwavering faith in Roland was the anchor that kept the gunslinger from being completely consumed by his obsession. For Roland, Jake's death is an echo of his first terrible sin. He had sacrificed the boy once out of necessity. Now, the boy has sacrificed himself for the quest. The pain of this loss is almost too much for Roland to bear. He is a man being systematically stripped of every connection, every piece of love he has managed to find. The universe seems to be telling him that to reach the tower, he must be utterly and completely alone. The remaining members of the quartet, Roland, Susanna, and the loyal Billy Bumbler Oi, continue their journey. But their group is a shadow of what it once was. The laughter is gone. The heart has been ripped out. They are driven forward now, only by grim duty and the memory of their fallen friends. Along the way, Susanna too is given a choice. She finds a door that leads to another version of New York, a world where duplicates of Eddie and Jake are waiting for her, a world where she can have a life of peace and happiness. Roland, in an act of love that would have been impossible for him at the beginning of his quest, lets her go. He chooses her happiness over his own need for a companion. He understands that her part in the story is over. And so, at the very end, it is just Roland and Oi who finally approach the field of red roses at the foot of the Dark Tower. But the Crimson King has one last trap, one final monster to throw in the gunslinger's path. This creature is Mordred Deschain, Roland's son. Not a son of love, but a son of violation and dark magic, born of a demonic union that the king's minions forced upon Susanna. Mordred is a twisted, horrible creature, half human, half spider. He shares Roland's blood, but he is filled with the Crimson King's chaotic evil. He has been hunting the quartet for their entire journey, a shadowy predator stalking his own father. His purpose is to kill Roland and claim the tower for himself, believing it to be his birthright. The final confrontation between father and son is a pathetic, ugly affair. Mordred is sick and dying, his spider half having poisoned his human half. He is a creature consumed by his own internal contradictions. In a final desperate attack, he lunges at Roland. It is not Roland who saves himself, but Oi. The small, brave Billy Bumbler, loyal to the very end, attacks the spider creature, giving his own life to protect his master. Roland is then forced to kill his own monstrous child. The last member of his quartet is gone. The final price has been paid. Roland Deschain stands before the Dark Tower, as he was at the beginning, utterly alone. He looks up, and he sees his final enemy. There, on a balcony high up on the tower's spire, is the Crimson King. He is not the terrifying, godlike figure Roland might have imagined. He is a cackling, insane old man with a white beard and blood-red eyes. Trapped and powerless to physically intervene, he resorts to throwing magical grenades, called sneeches, down at Roland. It is a bizarre, almost comical final battle. The great lord of chaos is reduced to a deranged old man throwing exploding toys from his porch. This is the moment that reveals the true nature of the Crimson King's power. It is not a power of true strength, but of madness. It is the power of a cosmic tantrum. Roland cannot defeat him. His bullets, which can kill almost anything, have no effect on the king in his prison. All he can do is dodge the exploding sneeches, trapped at the foot of the tower he has spent his entire life trying to reach. It seems like an impossible stalemate. But then, a final agent of the White appears. Not a warrior, but a young artist named Patrick Danville, whom Roland had rescued earlier. Patrick has a unique gift. Anything he draws and then erases is also erased from reality. He is another example of the White's subtle power. The ultimate weapon against the unmaking is not a bigger gun. It is the act of creation itself. At Roland's command, Patrick draws a picture of the Crimson King, a perfect likeness, capturing all of his rage and madness. Then he takes his eraser, and he erases the drawing. The Crimson King screams a final, terrible scream as he is unmade, wiped from the pages of existence, his entire being reduced to a pair of disembodied red eyes, which are then also erased. The great enemy of all reality is defeated not with a bang, but with the quiet whisper of a pencil and an eraser. The path is clear. Roland Deschain, the last gunslinger, finally stands before the door to the Dark Tower. He enters. The inside of the tower is not a staircase, it is a journey through his own life. Each floor he ascends contains a room, and each room forces him to relive a key moment from his past. He sees his childhood in Gilead. He sees his first love, Susan Delgado, whom he was forced to let die. He sees the faces of his first quartet, his friends Cuthbert and Alain, who died at Jericho Hill. He sees Eddie, Jake, and Oy. He is forced to confront every sacrifice, every hard choice, every moment of pain and loss. The tower demands that he understand his own story in its entirety before it will allow him to reach the top. It is a painful, cathartic journey. He walks through the ghosts of his own life, accepting the man he has become because of them. Finally, he reaches the last door at the very top of the tower. Carved into the door is a single word, his own name, Roland Deschain. With a sense of finality and dread, he opens it. What he sees is not the mind of God or the end of the universe. What he sees is the desert, the same vast, empty desert from the beginning of his quest. A powerful force takes hold of him, pulling him back through the door, back through time and space. He feels a horn, the great horn of Eld, an artifact of his ancestors, being taken from his grasp. He feels all his memories of the tower, of the ending, being scoured from his mind. And then he is standing under a hot, alien sun, his throat dry, his memories hazy, but his purpose clear. Ahead of him, in the distance, he can see the figure of a man in black, and the thought forms in his mind, as it always has. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. He has been here before. He has reached the tower countless times. And every time, the tower, which is the physical form of Ka's will, has sent him back to the beginning. His quest is a loop, an eternal cycle. His obsession is his curse. He is so focused on reaching the end of the path that he fails to learn the lessons along the way. He is doomed to walk the same road of pain and sacrifice over and over again for eternity. It is a terrible, shocking ending, an ending that seems to negate the entire journey, but it is not an ending of pure despair, because this time, one thing is different. As Roland begins his pursuit once more, his hand falls to his hip, and there, hanging from his belt, is the horn of Eld. In every previous journey, he had left the horn on the battlefield at Jericho Hill, deeming it an unimportant relic. His focus was only on the future, on the tower, and he cast his past aside. But this time, in the journey we have just witnessed, he picked it up. This small act, this decision to honor his past, to carry the memory of his fallen friends with him, has changed the equation. The loop is not perfect, it can be altered. His journey is not a flat circle, it is a spiral. He is being sent back, yes, but he is being sent back a slightly better man. A man who has learned something about the importance of love and memory, and the implication is clear. He will walk the path again. He will gather his quartet. He will suffer and he will sacrifice. But this time, when he reaches the tower, he will have the horn with him. And perhaps this time, when he blows the horn at the foot of the tower, as the legends say he should, the door will open onto a different room. A room of peace, a room of rest. The story of Roland is not a story of damnation. It is a story of redemption, told one agonizing, endlessly repeating lifetime at a time. The wheel of Ka turns, the quest continues, but now it continues with hope. The song of the universe is a long one, and it is not over yet, and so the gunslinger follows, forever seeking not just a tower, but the man he needs to become, to be worthy of it. And we, having walked the path with him for a time, may finally rest.